Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so you just done the kind of GDP summary stroke retail sales all mixed into one, as you saw, very long section. I haven't decided if that will be, might even split that out into two sections. I can't remember. I haven't decided yet how I'm going to do it, but basically you've done that. Clearly this needs to be just wrapped up in terms of retail sales very quickly. Probably going to be one of the shortest sections in the courses. I say that, famous last words, but the point is, you see what I mean. We covered retail sales pretty much in more detail than you're ever going to see. Okay, and I think I can confidently say that. It's not just lip service. I've actually delivered proofs in the pudding. I've shown you basically retail sales to a level that you probably will never see before. So now it is worth still though, having said that, let's look at the data just very briefly. Really not that much to it. The most important thing, just make sure I'm not covering anything. Most important thing was the context. We've already covered that. Let's just nicely wrap it up. I'm also very, very happy I've done that summary of GDP section. Came out brilliantly. I kind of felt like it needed just wrapping up a little bit, because the GDP section we did at the start of the course, part 2, it was a lot for a lot of people to take in. I asked you to do a lot of reading, so it kind of needed capping off, especially as GDP is ultimately what everyone is kind of looking towards achieving, as a country and as majority organizations, whether it be the government and then political parties and so on, and obviously to the Fed to a large extent, even though it's not in their mandate. Ultimately, that is what they need. If there's no economic growth, they're going to be in trouble, right? So let's look at retail sales just finally. It's going to be really easy because we've already discussed retail sales pretty much in a lot of depth. So we can see the number here, right? So for me, look at your last one. I don't know when that's going to be. I keep saying it, but it could be 2-3 years from now. It could be a massively positive number. It could be 0. It could be negative. Who cares? Point is, just making sure I'm not covering that. Nope. Okay, so the point is, as usual, as I do with everything, and I want you to do for yourself and for the rest of the dashboard, which I seem to have lost, unfortunately. Nope, there you go. Yep. So for this is the last time I'm going to show you something. Obviously, go into the website and showing you how to find all the stuff. You can do that for yourself for claims, PPI, production, and so on. Okay, same principle. Don't do it now. Do it in a year. Once you're 1 year, I know I said 6 months, and I think 12 months is better, but whatever. 6 to 12 month business plan. Once you've finished, going through these in a lot of detail, then do what I'm about to show you for retail sales. But for these, do it in a year's time. Okay. Obviously, if you've got questions, you can let my team know. But otherwise, hopefully, it's pretty straightforward, right? Like I've always shown you. Go in here. Let's look at the latest release. Can you see core retail sales? It's not called retail sales. Okay, it's called the Advanced Monthly Retail Trade Report, or the Monthly Retail Trade Report. Do you remember what I said to you about the definitions? Where is it? Advanced Monthly Retail Trade Report. Where is it gone? About the surveys? Yeah. Advanced Monthly and do you see their nicknames are MARTS and Monthly Advanced Retail Trade Survey and Monthly Retail Trade Survey. This should be so familiar. Do you remember you saw MRTS constantly on the BEA? And I already explained to you. The number that we are looking at here is this, MARTS. So I'm not going to go into all of that because you've just done all of that in the last section. But what you need to realize is this is it. Okay, core retail sales and headline and so on is actually this, MARTS. Okay, so what you do when you get to this, you click go. You can either go to Google retail sales reports or whatever, or you can just go direct from here, or you can find it through obviously the Census Bureau. Never actually gone through here before, so let's have a look where that is. Is it surveys? Should be somewhere in here. Retail. Gee, it's not there, is it? Browse by topic. God, I don't know where it is. Business and economy. Oh, there's some indicators there. Did you see them? I mean, I think you see them here. Yeah, economic indicators. Right, all economic indicators, or here economic indicators. Where is it gone? Construction spending. You can see all of them, the ones they released. And the one that we are interested in is where's it gone? Retail, advanced monthly retail sales. Okay, see, so you end up at the same page. Basically, it's the same page. So to get the data, I believe it's this. Okay, so it's this one. I'm not going to bother going through the monthly one. I already explained the difference to you. 5,500 instead of, I can't remember, 13,000 or whatever it was, retailers. It is this one. Okay, what we will do, let's just have a look together at how the data are collected. Okay, so we're only going to focus on the advanced monthly retail trade, which is the MARTS. Okay, so 5,500 units selected from the total of 13,000 for the main retail trade survey, stratified by broader industry categories, blah blah blah. I don't need to get into all of that sampling and how the sampling is done, and don't get bogged down in all that. This is the main bit. Data collection. Data are collected by mail, telephone, etc., etc., from 5,000 employer firms. A little bit of stuff here. Okay, it's quite interesting. Sampling, variance, and all of that. I don't know any traders who care about any of that. They just take the number as a given, so that's fine. You'll see there'll be two numbers. There'll be a retail and there'll be an adjusted number. Okay, so they are adjusted for seasonal variation, and that's quite important. Okay, so seasonality and things, and there will be quite a bit of adjustment going on to the number that comes through. They will make an adjustment for it. So obviously, like all the data that we've been looking at throughout the whole fundamentals course, you've seen a lot of it is adjusted, right? Either for seasonality or prices and all sorts of things. So they will make all those same adjustments to make sure that it is accurate and not just raw data. Obviously, they want to adjust for various factors, things like seasonality. So that's what that is. And that is really it, okay? That is really all you need to know. So it's a survey sent out to 5,500 firms, okay? And the only difference between this and really the MRTS that I told you comes slightly later, 6 weeks after the end of the period instead of 3 weeks, is this is 13,000, isn't it? Oh, where it's gone? It's somewhere here. Where is it gone? I don't know. Somewhere on this page. 13,000 firms. I showed it to you in the last section. Let me see if I can find it. So 13. Might be a comma, isn't it? 1,000. Yeah, there it is. Sample consists of approximately 13,000 employer firms. Okay, I believe that is the main difference. I mean, you can have a look. Sampling and design, and it goes into so much detail. Okay, it's completely irrelevant as a trader. Obviously, as an economist, this will be very, very important for you. Sample design, good luck with all of this. You can have, and I don't even mean that in a, I don't even mean anything. I'm not trying to be smart or clever by saying that. I'm not trying to, put you off. In fact, have a look at it if you want to. I've probably looked at this many years ago, but if you look at this, like standard errors, and it goes into so much detail about the calculations and things. It's irrelevant for us. I'm here to teach you to obviously use this in your trading, right? So a lot of it is going to be irrelevant for you, but I just wanted to point out that you can go here, how the data are collected. Really, the bit that you want to know, because we're generally looking at advanced, the one that is on the dashboard. If I can ever find the dashboard, just keep losing it. This one is the advanced retail sales, as I said many times. So it is this one. Okay, so really it's this. Data are collected by 5,500. And then obviously those retailers will fill in the survey and tell them kind of their sales estimates for the period. Okay, so you can see because the estimates are based on blah blah blah, they contain certain errors and they make certain adjustments and so on, as I already said. So that's all there. I mean, obviously have a look at that in your own time. What about the data, right? How is it? How are the how is the data actually put together? So, sorry, not this page. If you go back to the main page, so again, you can come through here, latest release, but it's the same thing, that main page. I believe it is not this time series, because I did have a look at this earlier. It's this full publication in Excel. Okay, so if you click on that, okay, and then that's going to open up. So can you see it's opened up? This. Okay, I know it's quite small. I don't want to zoom in too much. I don't want to, because I do find it easier. I find it easier to see everything on one page, but don't worry about it. I'll zoom in a little bit. Hopefully that is enough. Okay, so can you see the categories? Can you see why this section is going to be quite short? It's very straightforward. All right, this is how the respondents will obviously. I haven't actually seen the actual retail survey. Obviously, if you can find it, send it to me. I'm very interested. I've never really bothered. I'm not. It's not going to make much difference to my trading, and obviously I'm here to trade. So I want to see how I can use this in my trading. So I've never really got into that level of detail. Although having said that, I did say at the last section, obviously you should be doing this for general interest, and it is very interesting, but whatever reason, I've just never really bothered to look at the survey because this was enough detail for me. I just kind of am happy that obviously this is what they're sending out and receiving this kind of data. I don't really need to go into more detail than this and see exactly what the survey looks like. Point is, the survey is very well reflected in the ultimate end result that the Census Bureau are giving us, okay, which is this. So can you see the categories? Very similar to how everything we've seen is split out. Like CPI has its own categories, GDP has its own categories, all the other pieces of data we've been seeing, it's broken out, right? It's obvious. So it's broken out into retail sales. I'm almost embarrassed to point this out to you because it's so obvious. I'm not, throughout this course, the thing is I want to add value to what you're doing. Me telling you, hey, you can see these broken out, it doesn't really add much, okay? I'm going to point it out to you. You can do this in your own time. Just go and have a look at these categories. The only important thing about these categories, why I want to mention them, is, do you remember, how can you forget? The last section where we did the massive GDP summary, and I said to you these categories that are produced by the Census Bureau don't match exactly the breakdown that the BEA need for GDP. So can you see? And in fact, I think it is here. Right, let's just read this together. So what I want to just quickly do is, this is it. So have a read of this. Okay. In fact, this is a better page. I told you a lot of this. I don't have this pre-planned. This is the bit I want you to read. This will be the best bit for you to get a feel for the survey. Can you see the advanced survey, MARTS, again, said that a million times, you can probably hear that in your sleep. Early indication of sales and retail and food, of retail and food services companies, okay? This is why it was produced and so on. Retail and food services companies that sell merchandise to final consumers. It's kind of the amounts, frequency, monthly. A mail-out, mail-back survey of 5,500 firms. Okay, uses, very interesting here. The economic indicator is widely used and closely watched throughout government, academic, business communities. The BEA uses the estimates as an input for estimating GDP. Basically, the whole last 2 hours we've been talking about. The Fed uses the estimates to anticipate economic trends. In the minutes, they do like those economic surveys of where they expect forecasts, right? They do the projections. They'll be using this type of data as well, right? Because I showed you how useful this data is to estimate GDP. I showed you before, especially for the goods part of consumption expenditures and etc. etc. Okay, so you can see kind of all the details here. That's a really good section. I would suggest you can kind of have a look at. Let's go back to the data. Okay, so you see the data broken out here. Do you remember I said to you when they're calculating GDP, the BEA don't have the exact matches. Some of these won't match. Like they had household appliances and things like that. That's why they're using these as estimates. They'll find the closest match and then use it as a kind of estimator. This is what obviously is sent back to them, the Census Bureau. Okay, this is how it's broken down. These are the numbers. I really don't know what else I can tell you apart from these are the numbers. Basically, one thing we always do, and again I want you to do when you are, because remember this is going to be the last section now on theory, part 2 understanding. It's all done, right? I'm not going to be going through these because I don't want you to look at them for at least a year, and if at all, if you want to, that is, you can look at them. I think it's great if you do. Just making sure I'm not covering it. I'm also looking to get rid of that pink. Yep, there we go. What I want you to do you remember every time you go through these, we want to make sure the numbers match, that we're not just looking at some arbitrary data here. We want to make sure it matches the, so it wasn't actually that. Where's that data calendar gone? You need to make sure it matches the actual release. I seem to have lost it. Doesn't matter. Let me just load it up again. Where we actually open this out of. So when was my last release? The retail, sorry, it's week 3.2. This one, this one. There you go, minus 2.3. Okay, that was my last release. What I'm saying is for every piece of data here, when you're doing your own research, maybe in 6 months, 12 months time, and you're just checking all these ones out, the more peripheral data that I don't really look at that much, but I want you to check at the end of your business plan, and obviously check these out because we're not going to be covering these in this section. Remember, you need to make sure that the release matches the data that you've gone and found on the website. So let's have a look. Remember I said to you it's the adjusted number. So they obviously receive raw data and then they adjust it. What are we looking for? Minus 2.3%, right? And minus 1.9% on the headline retail sales. So let's have a look here. There should be minus 1.9, or I'm going to look a bit silly. Should be though, that over that. Minus 1. Okay, let me make that a bit bigger. Okay, 0%. Yeah, minus 1.9. Okay, so that matches exactly. Do you see that? Minus 1.9? Because don't forget, that's the core, right? And the core, it does exclude autos. Retail sales excluding autos. So that's minus 2.3%. The core, the headline is minus 1.9. Can you see that there? Minus 1.9. Right, so it's changed. These are in, it's in millions, so that would be billions. So in December, they estimating that retail sales were 626 billion. In November, there were 639 billion, so they were down 1.9%. Now, do you remember the core, excluding autos, was actually down 2.3%? Okay, so, and we can even calculate that right here. So here, right? So minus, you see that minus 2.3%. I just did copy paste there. Okay, so copy, okay, and paste, same thing. Minus 2.3%. All right, see that there? Minus 2.3%. Okay, so what that means is, if you think about it, that is basically the difference there. So excluding autos, retail sales actually dropped from 512 billion down to 500 billion, and you can actually see, where's it gone? Here. Okay, so you can see the change just for autos there. Okay, so 126 billion, 700, so barely changed, to be honest, not a massive change, but minus 2.3% when you split them out. So again, you can see the breakdowns all here. That's the point. So that's the headline, that's the core, negative month in December. That is where that comes from. Make sure that is the case. Like I said, so you're confident you're looking at the right data. Minus 1.9, minus 2.3. Yeah, and there you have it. I really don't know what else to add. To be honest, look, the point is when you come to do analysis and you're reading other people's research reports, now you know when they say, oh, you know, it was driven by, I don't know. In fact, you know what? You can just maybe copy these all the way down. Okay, be a bit messy. You get some values there, but you see, minus 2.5. You'll be able to see. Oh, okay. In fact, that's not. Let's look at the breakdowns. Motor vehicles, yeah, were down 0.4%, and that obviously was a drag on the core number, right, basically, and the total number. In fact, that was a drag on the total number, right? You can see that there. Obviously not on the core number, because the core number excludes that this motor vehicles. Furniture down 5.5%. That was a big driver, but the sales are quite low, so the contribute when you weight it by sales, it's obviously not that big a deal. Clothing wasn't very good, it was down. You can see some of these had big impacts. General merchandise stores and so on and so forth. Non-store retailers obviously had a big impact. But I mean, what else is there to say? You know, the data is available to you. I really don't have much to add. I've shown you where to get it from. You can kind of go through this in your own time. I'm really looking more at the headline number, but what the market does like to do on the odd occasion, I don't really see many people talking about these categories, because obviously it's not, you know, let's be honest, if we look at the dashboard, you know, and this is just to finish this section, you know, great job finishing this section. Hopefully you haven't rushed ahead, as I said in the last section at the start, and I gave that long speech about, you know, take your time with all of this. This is probably the least important piece of data out of all of these. Okay, partly because it's not released until week 3 and you've got so much indication of output from these pieces of data. Okay, especially in these ISMs, you've got kind of new orders, so you've got a good feel and for where retail, not even retail spending, but consumer spending is, because you've obviously got the manufacturers and services companies telling the ISM in the surveys. Do you remember the index of how are new orders from other customers, and that's widely followed, and retail sales is coming out so much later than that. And by the way, sorry, and I know I'm skipping around a little bit, one thing I forgot to mention, retail sales, okay, what the BEA does, so if you remember the circular flow of income, and I know I'm just telling you this now, but it's because I completely forgot, is important. And then I'm going to tell you, finish off basically the whole section. Households and businesses, right? Keep drawing with the factory and smoke coming out. We want to know what is consumption. Okay, expenditures. Would you agree? Right, that's what we're trying to figure out from households, consumption. You know, what are they spending, buying from firms? Don't forget, this is sales. Okay, I was wondering, in fact, before I started, I kept telling myself, make sure you remember this. Do you see, I don't really have this structured, so I forgot to mention this. So I wonder if any of you are thinking, hang on, MV, this is consumption expenditures, it's purchases, it's what consumers have bought, but this is sales. I mean, it's kind of obvious, basically. So what it is, right, the reason the sales are used, it's basically, if this is what people have bought, it's what they've been sold. Okay, so that's why this is used by the BEA. Now you might think that's obvious, but actually the BEA do make adjustments for like delivery costs and things, because don't forget, it'll be sales plus postage and packaging and stuff like that, all right? Just completely forgot to mention that at the start, right? And I told you I want to make this as comprehensive as possible. So that's why the BEA uses it as the expenditure, as in it's what households are buying, because it's, so do you see, it's kind of easier for them, rather than going to every single household and saying, hey, what did you buy this month? Very difficult. It's easier for them to go to retailers and say, what did you sell this month? Do you see? Because if you go to one big retailer, they're going to be able to cover a vast majority of purchasing. Whereas if you go to individual, I don't even know how they would do it. You know, pull out your receipts, find it. Do you see? If you go to a store, there's going to be more reliable. These stores are storing, you know how it is, it's obvious, right? It's on a system, and when it goes through the till, it gets recorded in a data warehouse, and you get the picture, okay? Why they use retail sales data rather than going to the household and saying, hey, what did you buy? I thought I'd just mention that, because firstly, I have to mention the circular flow of income in every module, or it won't be a module unless I mention it. But you see why they're using this data, the sales, and then they'll add, what the BEA do is they'll try and estimate purchasing, postage and costs and transportation costs, and they'll add it onto the sales. And then, So you see, that will be what you've actually bought. So they're doing it the other way around. Can you see? They're looking at sales coming in plus postage and packaging and saying that's actually what people have bought, consumption. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Completely forgot to mention that, so it's really, really important. So what I was saying in summary to end, you know, and what I should have done is I should have ended this section, this kind of deep understanding section. Do you remember at the start I gave you this long speech for like half an hour about go through each section, spend a month on each if you have to, understand it, go and check the last 6 releases, understand that you get what they mean. Do they tie in to the raw data you're looking at? Does it all tie into the last 6 releases on here? You're looking at the right data. You know what I mean? Become intimately familiar with all the websites and go on a journey. It will take you time. I should have said all that stuff at the end of this section, right? And said do any of that before you even go to the last analysis bit, because analysis is changing all the time. It's not really going to help you, the analysis I do. What's going to help you is this stuff that I've been doing in part 1 and part 2. You know, you're all like incredibly intelligent people. You just never had the right data before. You can do all the stuff I do in terms of discretionary. Now that you've got a dashboard and you understand those things in incredible detail, you don't really even need me to do an analysis section, because I'll just be pointing out the obvious to you. Stuff that you will be picking up yourself if you put in the time to learn all this stuff. So that's kind of how I wanted to end the section. But what I also wanted to say is in the hierarchy, like I was saying, the retail sales, it's the least important out of these. And the reason, and I'm talking about amongst institutional traders, as I said before, these things kind of cover a lot of consumption expenditures in much broader detail. They're earlier, right? We already said that. So broader. What do I mean by broader? Well, do you remember retail sales? What does it cover? I said this before. It doesn't cover, it only covers the goods mainly. And I showed you that in the last bit. Goods. Mainly of consumption expenditures. What about services? What about business investment? What about government spending? What about net exports? Do you see? It's a small part, a very important part and a good estimator, but a very small part relative to some of these bigger ones. Manufacturing and services will cover the entire manufacturing in terms of the components. In particular, I think it's the new orders component that a lot of people like to look at as a guesstimate to where GDP is going to be. Services, same thing. Payrolls is what? For everything, all the industries, right? Even government. You can see that's a much broader indicator for us to see, economic health. CPI, same thing, will cover everything. FOMC is the FOMC, need I say more? Retail sales is very important, but it's kind of, do you see, it covers a smaller part of the circular flow of income. These things are covering the majority when you put the ISMs together. Payrolls just covers everything. So important. I cannot stress. We already mentioned that. CPI is so important. Retail sales, in terms of circular flow of income, is slightly smaller, but still important. Because what people do, right? And you'll notice this a lot when you read research reports, is they won't look at one retail sales report. And again, I hate to confuse you, but it isn't actually MARTS that they're looking at. They're looking at the MRTS, isn't it? So they're not looking at the advanced, they're looking at just the normal one. But put that aside, all right? Most people do actually look at the advanced. BEA are the ones looking at the main one that comes out 3 weeks later because it covers more firms. Let's not get into that again. I shouldn't have even mentioned it. I apologize. Let's just call it retail sales. Okay, retail sales. How many quarters, how many months in a quarter? 3, right? So month 1, month 2, month 3. And then you get GDP for the quarter. Agreed? Q1, I'm making this up, could be any quarter. A quarter is 3 months. So can you see what a lot of people do, especially because retail sales is such a small part of C, right? Don't need to keep going over that, but it is a small part. It can be quite volatile, okay? So like I said, you get things like this. You know, you'll be positive, and then all of a sudden it will be down to 2.3%, right? Let's have a look at the last few. Do you see the last one was actually up 0.3, up 1.7, up 0.8, and then suddenly down 2.3. It can be quite volatile. Seasonal as well, kind of makes sense. You know, this is, in fact, it doesn't. In fact, I was thinking it's January. It's not. This is December. So actually, it's not a great number. But in fact, it is seasonal. So I just realized what's happened here. You know, they have the Black Friday sales, obviously earlier in the month. I believe it is end of October, early November, isn't it? Black Friday sales. So you see that was a boost. So a lot of people, I think I remember reading about this, potentially brought forward their spending and spent in November. So December got hit. But can you see it's like these patterns are taking place over 3 months, the whole quarter. So you'll notice a lot of people won't necessarily read into one retail sales. What they'll say is, they might be like, and I'm making this up, let's say that was +1. In fact, let's do it this way around. You'll notice this, okay, and that's why I just want to end with this on retail sales. Let's say that came out as -1%. The market doesn't really freak out over that, right? Because it won't be like, oh my God, retail sales are down, and the way that you're maybe taught in retail, no pun intended. What the market likes to do is it recognizes GDP as one quarter long. It recognizes shoppers' buying habits are seasonal. As I just said, you've got Black Friday. Sometimes people might spend more then and say, I got a bargain. I don't need to buy stuff in December over Christmas. I'm good enough. So you might see like month one -1%, and then you might see 0%, and then you might see some rebound in sales in month 3 of the quarter, +3%. Can you see what the market likes to do? It likes to look at all of them in total. Can you see that's actually quite positive for the quarter? Would you agree? Because what is GDP is made up of 3 months. It's going to be impacted by all of these. Okay. Now with payrolls, it's slightly different because payrolls encompasses virtually the whole circular flow of income. Because retail sales is so small, only a little part of consumption expenditures, as it is, it's not covering the whole of GDP. So you've got to be careful to an extent anyway. And on top of that, it's all 3 months that go into GDP. So to play it safe, you know, to be sensible, it makes sense, it's logical. Why pay so much attention to 1 month when you know it's volatile, it may jump around? So hopefully that makes sense. It's more the entire 3 months retail sales that people are looking for trends. Now, obviously, if you get -1, -2, 3, -2, 3 months in a row, of course, the market's going to be like, oh dear, GDP is probably going to be, at least the consumption part of that, of GDP, see, now, you know, maybe negative. So you hear people say this. They'll say, oh, 3 months, if you look at the last 3 months retail sales and combine them together, you know, looking negative for quarterly GDP. Okay, that's how people try to look at it. Okay, so hopefully that's useful for you, especially when you come to do your own economic research and you see people talking like that. That is what my caveat and slightly a warning would be about retail sales. Don't place too much emphasis on 1 month's numbers, because A, it doesn't cover the whole circular flow, as in everyone nationally. It's just obviously covering a lot of the goods purchases. Number 2, it's just 1 month. Number 3, it's quite volatile. People's spending habits when they go to retail stores, we know this. It can be quite volatile depending on seasons and things like that. So yeah, and then putting all that together, number 3 is that people will combine all 3 of them. All right. So look, hopefully you've enjoyed that section. This is pretty much 90% of the course done. So before you even go to, you know, I'll do a little bit of analysis with you, of course, and I'll show you where I get all the reports from and stuff. Don't now go and start looking at where Envy finds his research reports and don't. Look through every single one of these sections at least a couple times. You should be watching this at least, and that's minimum. I would say 10, but people say, I ain't got time to do 10, but whatever. Spend at least 3 to 6 months, I would say, going through again and again. Get comfortable with the data. Then you can go back and come back. Satisfy yourself that you are absolutely up to speed with everything. You understand it back to front. Because it was a bit dangerous to jump ahead into analysis yet, because obviously it's the first time you've seen a lot of this stuff. You know, and especially there's a lot to take in, and I appreciate that. This stuff, don't worry about it too much. You're perfectly capable of figuring out this data. It's very low level data that I don't want you to look at for a little while, a few months. I keep repeating the same point. Hopefully that was useful for you. Have a great day, and I'll see you just in the final section. We're going to do a tiny bit of analysis, like I said, not too much, and just wrap things up and so on and so forth. I will show you where I get my research reports. I'll put that in a separate section. Check that out. Don't rush into it. I know I've said it several times, but it is important. And I hope you've enjoyed that, and I will see you later.